Hello there, welcome to lesson number 2 in our series on using FluidDesigner for 3D printing to create Objet. In this lesson we're going to show you how you can create a vase using a Bezier curve, a Bezier circle and a Nurbs circle. So if you start FluidDesigner up, first of all we need to go to Learning Projects Objet, and it's lesson number 02. And we're going to create this object. I'll just switch on screencast keys first while I remember. We're going to create this object here on the right from the object on the left. So on the left of the screen what we've got is we've got a Bezier curve, which you can find on Add Curve Bezier. That's joined to the grey object here, which is a Bezier circle, which is Add curve. Now it doesn't say Bezier circle here, but it is just below Bezier, so this is a Bezier circle. These have been combined for you so that when you move these control points you can reshape the object quickly and easily. Now you will find objects like this in our templates with 3D templates cross sections. So this first object here, 01 circle cross section, that is essentially this object. So as long as you don't delete the template files, you can always open up a copy of this for yourself in future. So what we want to do is, I'll just move the window out of the way slightly. We want to adjust these control points so that we replicate the object on the right. Now I've done this, set this up to make it relatively easy for you to do, because I've switched on this snap feature here. So when we do move the control point, it's jumping in 1 centimeter increments because the grid at the moment is in centimeters. If we just adjust these points, I think that one needs to just go out a little bit, and there we are, we get that kind of bulge there. So it's just a case of moving a few points to recreate the shape. If the snap wasn't on, you'd be able to move it all over the place, but you'd still be able to more or less replicate this shape. Not so important now. But if we now press the tab key, we're currently in edit mode. If we press the tab key, now that we've got the general profile of this vase, we want to keep that and lock it. So what we do is highlight the vase itself. Now this, as I said, is a Bezier circle object, which is a curve, and we can't print curves. And we can edit them in terms of their profile, but we can't edit them in terms of deleting any meshes or anything like that. Whoops, why is that not slow there? Looks okay. So what I want to do now is to change this Bezier circle object into a mesh, and we do that in FluidDesigner by going to Tools, Object Tools, and converting it to a mesh, and you'll see the colour changes. The Bezier curve on the left hand side, if I highlight that and press the tab key, when I try and move it this time, it has no effect on our vase, because this curve, this Bezier curve, is not connected to this anymore once we've changed this into a mesh. So if I press the tab key on the keyboard, I can now delete this object. We don't need it anymore, so I can press X on the keyboard, X to delete, and get rid of that object. Now that this is actually a mesh, if we press the tab key and go into edit mode, you'll see we can see the mesh that makes up this object. And what we want to do next is we want to recreate these holes, this hole pattern or something similar to it in the object that we're working on. So that looks like it's kind of the center line of the object. So what I really want to do is I want to be able to highlight a face here, highlight a face, that's a whole rectangle, and delete it. Now at the moment I can't do that because all I can select are the points in the corners, and these are the vertices. So what I need to do is I've just clicked the right mouse button to open up this this menu, and I want to change the selection mode from vertex select to face select. So you can see now I can actually highlight entire faces in one click. And so what I want to do is I want to delete some faces on this object. And so if I highlight a face, the way to delete it is to press X on the keyboard and delete the face. Now the colour has changed, And the reason for that is that there's actually another face in the background, and if we look at our original object, we want holes in the front and the back. So what we need to do is, if we go to view and front again, if we highlight that face, it's actually the face at the back of the object, and press X and delete, you'll see I've now got two holes in the object, one at the front and one at the back, and that's what I'm looking to do. Now deleting them one at a time like that's going to take ages, so we've got a better way of doing it, and that is if we hold down the shift key on the keyboard, we can select multiple faces at the same time. Now it's not always easy to get all of them in one go, because these crosshairs tend to get in the way. So I was having problems getting that one, so I've just zoomed in. So I've highlighted a bunch of faces there. I want to do the same on the other side. So I want to start there and work my way out to the left, highlighting faces that are all one apart. I think I need at least one more row. Have I got enough? See, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I still want to do one more lot on this side. So I'll just zoom in. Okay, so I've highlighted a pattern of faces, and it's X to delete the faces. Now again, I've still got the ones in the background now, so I've still got to select them again. I'm trying to select the ones in the background this time. Whoops. Am I going to get them all? Probably not. I might have to come back and just do the odd one again. So it's not always easy to get these. I'm trying to do it quickly to get on with the lesson and the video. Hopefully I don't miss anything. So I'm just highlighting alternate ones. Hopefully that's alright. So X on the keyboard and delete all those faces. Yeah, it looks like I did miss one, or I missed two out, so I highlight those two and X and delete. Okay, so that's sort of replicated the pattern in our object on the right. It might not be exactly the same. I think I put two in. I've left two in the middle here. I didn't in this one, but not to worry. We can now come out of edit mode. Okay, so we've got the basic shell of this object. Now what we want to do is to create these rings, and we're going to do that by using a Bezier curve and then a Bezier circle, which is going to be the cross section of the ring, and a Nurbs circle, which is basically going to be the ring that's wrapped right around the object. First of all, I'm going to add a curve, and I'm going to add a Bezier circle, and that is placed in the center of the ring, center of the object, workspace here. So that's the Bezier circle, and it's got a radius of 1 millimeter, so it's got a diameter of 2 millimeters, that object. And that's going to be, in essence, the cross section of our ring. We now need to add a Nurbs circle. Now that's going to be placed in the same location in the center there, but what I want to do is I want to scale it up in size so that it just protrudes through the skin of my vase. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see it happening. Okay, so the Nurbs circle should still be highlighted. So I need to press S on the keyboard to scale up an object, and as I pull away you should see a line appear. Now it's not really a line, it's actually a circle being wrapped right around our vase, and I want it to just protrude through the skin of the vase. Now when I do that, when I scale anything, these resize vectors will change in FluidDesigner, and you've always got to reset them. So whenever you scale in FluidDesigner, always immediately do Control A and apply the scale. So we've got a tick in the scale box here. That's quite important in FluidDesigner. If you don't do that, you can end up with printing problems. So whenever you scale up, either bigger or smaller, apply the scale. Now I've still got this Nurbs circle highlighted, and over here in the properties panel there is a curve button, because this Nurbs circle is a curve object. And what I'm going to do is, if I select bevel object, and if I select the Bezier circle, that's the 2 millimeter diameter circle that's located in the center here. If I select that, it will wrap the Bezier circle around the Nurbs circle, and so we'll end up with this ring. Now, it's not quite as fat as the other ring because we haven't solidified the whole object yet. Okay, so but this at the moment is still a curve, and we need to change it from a curve to a mesh. So we need to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert that Nurbs circle into a mesh. Okay. Now we can just go in here and click on the original Bezier circle. We don't need that anymore, so I'm going to press X on the keyboard and delete that. We've used it to wrap it around the Nurbs circle on the outside here, but because we've converted that to a mesh, we don't need it anymore. So if I go to View and Front again, the next thing I want to do is I want to have this circle here, this ring. I need to make a duplicate of it. I want a second copy here, and the way to make a duplicate is just to go to Tools, Object Tools, and duplicate the object, and without moving the mouse, press the Enter key. So the duplicate object will be in the same location as the original. And if we just drag it up now we've got the snap on at the moment, so I can't position it quite where I want to. So if we just switch the snap off, if I just move that back down and just get it so that it just interferes with the shell of my vase. Okay, so we've got a ring here and a new ring here now, and all we need to do now is to join these 3 objects together and convert them, well, apply some thickness to them. Now before we do that, I'm going to actually delete this original object. I don't want this to get in the way, so I'm going to press X and delete it. And there is a kind of really sophisticated way of combining these objects, and that is to use a Boolean modifier. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the cheats way in FluidDesigner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my vase, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just zoom in, and holding down the Shift key I'm going to highlight that circle and highlight that circle, so I've got all 3 objects highlighted now, and I'm going to go to Tools, Object Tools, and join all 3 objects together. So if we move now, you can see all 3 objects are joined together. I'm just going to do undo and undo just to put it back at the origin there. Okay, so we've joined all 3 objects together. It's not the best way of doing this, okay, but it will work. It will work. So now what we want to do, this is still a shell. We want to give it some thickness. So if we go to the modifiers icon, we want to apply a solidify modifier to this object, and if we apply a thickness of 3 millimeters, and the thicknesses are being applied on the inside of the shell because that's the offset is -1. There we are, we've recreated the object in this lesson. Now if we go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert that to a mesh, that will confirm the thickness. Now we still haven't really finished here. There's still a couple of other things we need to think about and do. But first of all, let's save it. So always go to Save As in FluidDesigner, go up through the menu system and go to My Projects and Objet d'Art, and we can save that as a Blender file. Now we can't print Blender files, so if we go to File and Export, and we like to use the Wavefront Object file, export it to the desktop, so it's O2 Ceramic Vase Object. And what we then need to do is to go to Netfab Basic and check this object. So Project Open, Desktop, and we want O2 Ceramic Vase. Now, we've got some issues here. We've got red lines around this object. Let's have a look if we go to Extras and Repair Part. Let's see what actually happens. If we click on update, well, there doesn't seem to be any problems there. So let's run the automatic repair and execute it, and update and apply the repair and remove the old part. Okay, now it's still saying that there aren't any problems, but we've still got this red highlighted. So let's just save it. So part, export part as a wavefront object, export it to the desktop. So we export it as O2 ceramic vase repaired. Now everything seems okay, but we've still got these red. Well, what's going on here? Well, if we go back to FluidDesigner, this is where the red is. These rings. Now we need to switch from FluidDesigner menu to the Blender menu. So we click on the little icon in the top left corner there, and we click on the Blender interface. Now with the object highlighted, if we press the Tab key on the keyboard, to go into edit mode, in Blender there are a lot more options, a lot more functionality, and not easy to see here. Let me just move that out of the way for a second, and then I'll zoom back in again. So a lot more things going on in Blender, and we don't want to use Blender too often if we can avoid it, because it is quite complicated. It's really for the more advanced users, but there are at times when you've got to use it. And hopefully, you know, you will get into wanting to use it as you want to do more and more sophisticated things. So in Blender, what we're looking for is, under Mesh Display, there's something called Normals. And if we click on this icon here, which is the face normals, and if we just make them a little bit bigger, and if we zoom in, and I'm just going to change this down again, and I'm going to change it to 0.5 mm for millimeters. What you should be able to see on this mesh is all these lines sticking out, and they tell you the direction of the faces. But if you look at the ring, and the ring, remember, is where we've got a problem, there are no lines sticking out. The rest of the object, the lines are sticking out, and the lines give you the direction of the faces. What this is telling me, and what the red in Netfab Basic is telling me, is that these faces are facing the wrong direction. So they need to be fixed. They need all to be rotated. Now there is a way in Blender of rotating them. I'm not going to explain it here. There's a much quicker way of solving this problem. And the way to do it is to go onto the internet and Google Netfab Cloud. And if you register yourself there as a user there, you just need a Microsoft account. What you can do is the OBJ file that we created, if you upload it to Netfab Cloud will repair it, and then you'll be able to download the repaired file. Now I did this a few minutes ago, and if I just come out of edit mode there, and if I just delete that version of our object, and if I just go to File and Import a wavefront object from the desktop. Now when we're working with Netfab Basic, the little bit of text repaired is added to it. When you go to Netfab Cloud, the little bit of text fixed is added to it. So this file here, I repaired it first of all in Netfab Basic, which didn't do the whole work, but I then uploaded it to Netfab Cloud, and then when it was fixed, I downloaded it to my desktop. So if I open up this file, so this has been fixed by Netfab Cloud, and Netfab Cloud does some extra repairs to your meshes. So if we press the Tab key now, you should be able to see that this looks a little bit different now, this part of the object. And if I click on the display the face normals icon, which I just did a few seconds ago, let me just zoom back and show you again. If I click on this icon here to display the face normals, so I'm still in the Blender menu, when we zoom in, you see all these lines coming out of that ring that goes around the object. So all these faces have been rotated automatically for you by Netfab Cloud. Now, trying to do this manually is a nightmare. Okay, so the key thing to understand is that if in Netfab Basic you get these red lines, go to Netfab Cloud and see whether that will fix your object. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of this lesson. Quite a lot of stuff in there, some important stuff. Quite an interesting object, I think. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of this lesson. Thank you.